So let's get started. So the first element of the story is character, and in particular the traits of a character. Stephen King said in his memoir On Writing, "I think the best stories always end up being about people rather than the event, which is to say they're character-driven. Who are the characters in your life? What about in your claims files? What do they look like? How old are they? What experiences have molded them?" Our first speaker, Marques Torbert, is here to talk about characterization in our opening presentation entitled Workers' Compensation Can Learn from Millennials. Marques is the Chief Executive Officer at Ametros Financial. This is a leading professional administration company that provides products to help injured workers manage and save money in their post-settlement medical funds. Ametros provides services that help injured workers navigate the healthcare and compliance maze with regard to Medicare set-asides and other non-Medicare funds. Marques has worked on Wall Street as an investor, an advisor, and a strategist. He serves on corporate and educational boards, including the Board of Trustees for Merrimack College in his beloved Cleveland, Ohio. He received his BA in economics from Columbia University and his MBA from Harvard Business School. Here now is Marques Torbert.
On here. So at first, since I was talking about millennials, I thought it might be appropriate to live tweet the whole presentation. But then when Mark told us no props were allowed, I decided I had to do something a little different. So what comes to mind when the word millennial is mentioned? Maybe entitled, tech savvy, avocado toast, maybe Tinder for some of you out there. Regardless, I'm sure that some of these words ring true. But what I can tell you is that there are a few words that do not immediately come to mind when the word millennial is mentioned, and that's workers' compensation and insurance. And I'm sure it's not surprising to some of you out there, but it's also not a good thing that the two aren't directly associated with each other. So, we have an imminent talent shortage that I view as a looming problem. And I also believe that our lack of focus on millennials and other generations is one of the top concerns that we should have for our industry. In fact, a study by Deloitte, which looked at 2.3 million workers in the insurance industry, estimated that 1 million workers would retire within 10 years. And on top of that, 70% of the adjusters are over the age of 40. Unfortunately, our problem is bigger than just replacing talent. Because not only do we have to think about replacing talent in our aging workers' comp workforce, we also have to be cognizant of how we are going to engage with and service our injured workers who are becoming a growing part of the millennial population. As we look out into the millennial population, there are several factors that I'm sure we all can recognize. We understand that they're really changing the landscape of what we think about from our jobs and our purchase in workers' compensation. So to better understand some of these trends that we're facing, millennials, for those who aren't as familiar, represent sort of a growing part of our population for those born between 1981 and 1996. And they represent today approximately 25% of our US population. In fact, millennials are expected to surpass baby boomers in terms of total numbers in 2019. That's next year, right? So when I think about, and I'm sure many of you here can relate to this, I went to college. I didn't necessarily double major in insurance and risk management with a minor in Medicare set-asides. Nor did I go to law school with the intent of graduating with a specialization in workers' compensation. But here I am. But like many of you today in the audience, what I can say is that I truly and thoroughly enjoy working within an industry that helps people. And equally important, working with some of the smartest and most passionate minds in any industry. So the question is, how can we better understand and change the paradigm so that we are better prepared with not only recruiting millennials, but making sure we're thinking about servicing this growing generational wave that is coming at us quickly? So for full disclosure, my math serves me right. Millennials represent those aged 22 to 37. So I happen to be one. albeit on the further end of the age spectrum. And I've had my fair share of experiences as a millennial in workers' compensation as well. I've been told a few times that individuals have worked in the industry longer than I've been alive. I'm the age of a few folks' children in the industry. And on top of it, there's a few other things that I've certainly encountered. I've also had the opportunity, and not to mention, all of those things are true and accurate. I've also been told that I don't know anything yet, which I also agree with in the system. However, what I will say is that through my organization, I've had the opportunity and privilege to work for and care for injured workers. And that's been very, very meaningful in my life. I've had the opportunities to go to meetings and work within an industry where I've been able to innovate and bring my new and fresh perspective to the table. And that's something that is truly enjoyable and something that I relate to very, very well. I am a firm believer that there is something to be said for those that have been in the trenches for decades, those who have experienced a lot, and those who've experienced multiple iterations of life. I've also, without a doubt, more and more become a believer and understood the impact of us having knowledge share, mentorship, and guidance along the way as well. But what I can say is that there is more that we can do to close the circle and make sure we're passing along not only the knowledge share to other generations, but that the learnings are being reversed to all generations. When I was in college, I had the opportunity to lead an organization called the Double Discovery Student Organization. The organization worked with inner city, low-income, soon-to-be first-generation college students. My passion and interest in the organization really centered around my own upbringing and experiences and wanting to give back. Through the organization, as you can imagine, we were allowed to help out these high school students by providing insights and guidance about college, helping them think about how to better prepare academically as well. However, the best part of the organization were the other aspects that were life-changing. The name was Double Discovery for a reason. The intent was that as experienced college students, while we were providing insight and guidance to high school students, we were also learning and developing ourselves. The idea that we were very keen on was that while as the mentors, we were able to develop just as much as the mentees. And that had a very, very profound, life-changing impact on many of us. It helped us better understand and relate to someone who was a first-generation college student, someone who had to commute 2 hours to school each day. And ultimately, it helped us better understand and relate to that person's perspective. So, what do my college years have to do with workers' compensation and millennials, right? Millennials in 2016 became the largest generation in the US labor force. Or put another way, millennials now represent approximately 35% of the labor force. So like it or not, millennials are coming into our industry at a very fast and rapid pace, and we must be prepared for it. As a leader in my own organization, I've experimented with ways in which I can help bridge the generational gaps that are existing. How can I better help implement or put into effect some of this double discovery so that all the generations within the organization can effectively learn from each other on how to do things in the most effective way? It's pretty common that most people, I can imagine here, expect millennials to be self-absorbed, maybe into themselves a little bit more, and impatient. By the way, that's how I got the committee to let me go first. However, I think some of the traits that we fail to recognize are that millennials are extremely passionate, they're innovative, and they have a thirst for pursuing things that they're very, very passionate and care about. And I can think of no other industry where those sort of things and traits exist than workers' compensation. We have the platform to very much recruit some of those same traits and things that attract millennials, and we should all be working to take advantage of it. So I think that we should all get together. We should try to make sure that we're recruiting millennials to make sure that the sustainability of our industry survives, but also even more importantly, that we are preparing for servicing injured workers who will ultimately become the millennials that we have to take care of. So we should work on doing this together because there's too much knowledge, too much opportunity, and too much good that can happen for us not to prioritize this. So, in typical millennial fashion, I'm going to leave you with something to post to your Twitter accounts out there, and that is, let's make sure that we continue to work hard to complete this circle of knowledge share, mentorship, and guidance. And let's try to see if we can enjoy a hashtag double discovery moment within our industry as well. Thank you.